All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets for the Friday night game between the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go ahead and get into it. And so I do like to start out with a game preview here. And what we're going to notice is that this is projected to be a pretty high scoring game. So naturally, we probably want to be favoring a little bit more of the overs that are going to be available for us. If there are good ones available for us, obviously we'll go through that here in a second. It is a close scoring game, 2.5 points or so. Eagles are favored by 2.5 points. Now, I will say right away, if we were just basing this off of last year, I think we would all say it'd be pretty crazy to go with the Eagles as the favorites, but it is a new season, okay? Both these teams on paper are two of the best teams in the NFL. Both of these teams on paper could easily make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. I don't think that'd be too shocking to anyone. So fun game, honestly, between the Thursday night matchup, which again, two Super Bowl teams, and then this game, two of the best teams in the league. Fun action for Thursday and Friday. Looking at the injury report, this is something that I do think could be interesting for the Green Bay Packers. We need to get some sort of confirmation on Tucker Kraft. Is he going to play or not? I am expecting him to play. I think he will be played, but will he be limited? That is also something that we need to monitor as well. If he is limited, we're going to probably see Luke Musgrave play a bunch of snaps. Now, personally, I like Tucker Kraft much better than Luke Musgrave. When Musgrave got injured, that highly benefited us last year because we were all over Tucker Kraft. Another thing that I think is noteworthy is the fact that Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie running back, could be out, and then A.J. Dillon we know is out. So that probably will leave Emmanuel Wilson to be the RB2, but I think we're probably going to expect a heavy workload for Josh Jacobs. Now, they did sign a highly talented practice squad player, if you will, in Chris Brooks. Chris Brooks is someone that really dominated throughout the preseason whenever we had gotten the chance to see him. The issue is whenever we have gotten the chance to see him, he seemingly gets injured right after a big play. Really unfortunate for him, the timing of it. I said at the start of the year, I'm like, if Chris Brooks were to sign to the Raiders, he could be maybe a sneaky fantasy football asset. Obviously, we don't need to worry about that now. But the point is, we could be looking at a heavy workload for Josh Jacobs, potentially a heavy workload for Luke Musgrave, and then also Romeo Doubs. He is currently questionable for this game. And this kind of brings me flashbacks to last year with the Green Bay Packers, where last year the Packers had Christian Watson pop up on, I think it was the Wednesday injury report with a hamstring injury, and then he ended up missing 4 weeks, 3 weeks. He ended up missing an extended period of time. Now, that's not the same injury that we are dealing with here with Doubs, so we're probably not worried about it being a long-term injury. And as I'm recording this today, we probably should get a little bit more information. They flew to Brazil, I think it was last night. And so, kind of the run through practice, we should get an update on him. But if he is limited, that's going to mean Christian Watson's going to get a lot more snaps. That's going to mean Wicks is going to get a lot more snaps. And then Jaden Reed could get some kind of easier catches as well. So something to monitor there as well. And so with that, let's stay with the Green Bay Packers here. But real quickly, I did want to kind of take a peek here at this game as well. If you guys were looking to bet on this game in terms of the Packers winning, you'd want to do it on MyBookie AG. That's where we are getting the best odds. They're 3-point dogs in that game. We can see Fliff has it at 1.5. So if you guys are someone that plays on Fliff, you probably want to bet it the opposite way there, just as an FYI. And then another kind of standout here, and this is why I like doing this for you guys, is William Hill has this game at 45. Could bet that over. Now, that's probably going to be adjusted pretty quickly here, but just wanted to toss that out. All right, so now we go ahead and take a peek at the big board for PrizePicks right now. What are the top prop bets on the board for the Green Bay Packers? And again, this is where it gets super interesting, guys. So we have Doubs, who potentially could be limited. I doubt it. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be full go. But if he is limited or maybe gets listed as out, these are huge edges that we would have. And I find these lines extremely strange where we are getting them. So right away, Christian Watson at 3 receptions is probably the bet that stands out to me the most. He should not be at 3 receptions. I get the line being at 3.5. I don't get why it'd be like a 58% likelihood for him to get under 3.5 receptions. This one is one to me that stands out. Now, I do recommend betting the over 3.5 receptions, but not on PrizePicks or Underdog, not where we're getting a lack of edge there. And we can see the data is telling us at 3.5 receptions, we should be betting the under for Christian Watson. At 3 receptions, we should be betting the under receptions for Christian Watson. I'm saying I disagree with that. And so again, we don't want to bet that on PrizePicks or Underdog. We want to be doing that somewhere else. And the way I like to look at this, guys, is Christian Watson is the receiver number 1 in this offense. I don't think anyone would be questioning that. look at it in terms of like season long. If there was a receiver for the Green Bay Packers that ended up being a receiver number 1 in fantasy, I don't think anyone would say anything other than Christian Watson, assuming that he stays healthy. The biggest issue everyone has with Christian Watson is health. He is healthy heading into the season. He should be good to go. And so you look at the times last year when he was healthy, he was highly productive. The issue with him is that we barely have ever seen him healthy for a good stretch of the season. This is going to be that stretch of the season. And so assuming that he plays 70% of the snaps or more, which I do assume, they might try to limit him this season to keep him healthy throughout the whole season. We'll see. But he's good to go. And so assuming that he plays 70% of the snaps, he should get 6 to 7 targets in this game, especially if Dobbs is banged up. Now, I know if we look at the per game stats, he does average under 3 receptions. Again, when he has been healthy, he has averaged over that. And so at the 3 receptions that we currently have him on for PrizePicks, I'm fine betting the over. I think the chances of him getting 3 receptions are great. That prop bet has a good chance to be a push, but I would actually recommend you guys to do this over bet on FanDuel. You can bet him over 3.5 receptions at plus 135 on FanDuel. That'd probably be my favorite bet because you're going to get a good payout if that ends up hitting. Again, assuming that he's healthy, assuming that he is still going to be the receiver number 1 in this offense, when he's healthy, that should be the best bet on paper. And don't get me wrong, I get why we are getting the lines that we are getting for the Green Bay Packers receivers. I just kind of think they're a little bit too low. I like comparing them against the Houston Texans, whereas if you look at the Texans lines, Tank Dell, Diggs, and Nico Collins are all very high. Then you compare them against the Green Bay Packers, who I think are an extremely comparable team. The Packers receivers are all a little bit lower, which is strange. But yeah, looking at it, I want to look at the underdog prop bets that we are getting. I do find the 5.5 targets to be interesting. Again, I see this closer to 6 to 7 targets in this game, especially if it's going to be higher scoring. That's something we need to remember there as well. And I think his receiving yards line is too low as well. He could get this literally in one catch. I doubt it. That's extremely rare for that to happen. But yeah, I mean, I really like the over. Even his longest reception, that's something I typically would not recommend, but that's a decent edge that we have there as well. And then we look at kind of the underdog big board here as well. We're going to see a lot of the same prop bets for Watson specifically in terms of his under fantasy score. So if you were wanting to bet his under fantasy score, the slightly better bet would be on underdog. Okay, so looking at it, guys, there is a slight adjustment in terms of fantasy score between PrizePicks and underdog. That's going to be in the receptions. DraftKings does a full point, underdog does a half a point. So there was a slight difference in the calculation, and so there's a bigger edge on underdog there. Now, I would be more in favor of this bet for his under fantasy score than I am the receptions. There's a path where they both could hit, but again, that one was one to me that just stood out as strange. I don't think we should be getting that big of a difference. And so another one that we're going to see in terms of fantasy score is going to be Romeo Dobbs, where his fantasy score at 9 is probably a little bit too high. I don't think many people would be arguing that. Now, the issue with Romeo Dobbs is that he has been used as kind of a goal line threat for them. He is their red zone target. Now, again, Watson should be healthy. Watson has a good vertical. He could be used that way as well. Do want to mention that they did bring in Josh Jacobs, I believe, to alleviate some of the pressure off of Jordan Love at the goal line. A lot of the times last year, I think it was like 12 of his touchdowns last year came in like 3rd and 4th down situations inside the red zone, simply because their rushing game was not able to do that. And I think that's a decent reason as to why they brought in Josh Jacobs. But I will say, if Romeo Dobbs does get this over fantasy score, it probably would be because he scores a touchdown. Okay, I don't see that really happening otherwise. And again, he's more of that red zone threat. So probably don't need to go there. Then from there, we look at some of the other prop bets that we are getting. Luke Musgrave, I do think, is noteworthy for his receptions prop here. Luke Musgrave at 2.5 receptions. So with Luke Musgrave, we do have to kind of look at it in terms of when he was healthy, he was consistently getting this over. He was consistently treated as the tight end number 1. And so I tend to just trust GMs and coaches more so than myself. I know I said I like Tucker Kraft more than Luke Musgrave, but hey, they must love his terrible ball skills for some reason. Luke Musgrave and Kyle Pitts, they're on my hate list for ball skills. They're just bad. Anyways, this is a low reception total, especially if Tucker Kraft is limited in this game. Again, I don't think that's going to happen with Tucker Kraft. I think all indications have shown that he is going to play in this game, but how much will he play? Will he be limited? Will his snaps be limited? He's coming off of I believe it is a pectoral injury where he was bench pressing, and his like pec ripped on one of the reps. And so that's something to note. He might be limited. He didn't play in the preseason at all. And much of the Stars did not. But if we get 80%, 70% of the snaps to Luke Musgrave, that is a very low snap share, especially, again, in a game that is projected to be high scoring. And the thing with Luke Musgrave is last year, he was probably one of the most annoying players last year in general because he should have been a top 10 tight end. He made some mental mistakes on some routes, maybe a little bit of chemistry issues with Jordan Love. There's a bunch of times where he's looking over this shoulder and Jordan Love threw it to this shoulder, a couple of tight end choice routes where he runs the opposite way of what Jordan Love was thinking, and just some terrible ball skills on some plays. It looked like on some of the plays, he just got a little bit too excited because they were like too easy of catches, which I get it. That can sometimes be hard catches, but yes, that's my long way of saying I don't mind Luke Musgrave for over 2.5 receptions. And guys, if it seems like I'm talking about the Green Bay Packers a lot, it's because I am a fan of the Green Bay Packers. A lot of people said that I had bias last year. That bias paid off, both in season-long best ball drafts and for props betting. Okay, like it's a good thing to have the information, I think. Let's go ahead and finish off the Packers here, though. In terms of the prop bets that we are getting on the board, we're not going to be getting that many good ones. Jaden Reed, I don't want to mess with for his fantasy score. I think he's going to be a little bit more gadgety than people kind of realize. If you wanted to bet Josh Jacobs for over his receiving yards, you would want to do that on Underdog, where they're lower than PrizePicks by 1. That's not a big prop line difference, I would say. The average sportsbook line has that at 17, so they're meeting in the middle there. I would say that makes sense. The Green Bay Packers newly acquired kicker, kicking points, 6.5. Interesting there, I would say. I don't mind the over there, but that would mean we are probably doing some of the under fantasy scores for like Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. I would say that correlates decently there. Josh Jacobs over 2.5 receptions or under. I would say his line at 2.5 is correct. Don't need to go with that. And then Wicks at 2.5 receptions. If Doubs were to be limited, again, I expect him to play. I just want to make you guys aware. This would be a fantastic line. I would assume Watson's line would go up to 3.5 for sure if we got news that Doubs was limited. And then Wicks would probably go up to 3 at least. So interesting lines there. And then we jump back into the PrizePicks board here, or the Underdog board here. Basically more of the same. Basically all the same prop bets that are popping up are going to be popping up here as well. We are getting a little bit of a prop line difference between Josh Jacobs for his rush receiving yards compared to PrizePicks and Underdog. If you want to bet his under, you would do it on PrizePicks at 86.5. If you want to bet his over, you'd do it on PrizePicks because it's off a little bit. Or sorry, if you want to do his over, you would do it on Underdog. It's off by 3. So if you guys followed the channel at all last year, you know that I was basically hyping up Jordan Love. I was hyping up Jordan Love the whole season. I was begging people to draft him in best ball drafts in season long. Throughout the season, I was saying the prop lines that we're getting on him were vastly too low. It was kind of one of those situations where I don't know how he's going to get there fantasy score wise, but I think he's going to get there. And that's kind of the same situation where I'm at today. I just think the Packers are being undervalued. And maybe that's because Josh Jacobs is there. That could be. But 17.5 for his fantasy score is definitely too low for Jordan Love. He consistently got this over. We bet his over fantasy score every single slate, guys. And I think he let us down twice last year. And one of the times last year was because he threw a pick at the end of the game. So he had the over, threw that pick because he stay on his feet to either make a simple block or stay on his feet to catch a 5-yard dump off. That'd be a 30-yard catch. That sets them up for another Anders Carlson missed field goal. Yeah, I'm still tilted by that. That's why he's gone. But yeah, this is a good fantasy score line, I would say, in regards to this game, especially if you're trying to stack this game, especially if you think it is going to be that high scoring. Now, I don't think we absolutely need to go on that Jordan Love prop, but I think it's fine. Let's go ahead and jump on into the Philadelphia Eagles. And so again, I know I spent a lot of time on the Green Bay Packers, but there's a lot more nuanced things to them again this year. That was the thing last year. I had to spend a lot of time on them because there's a lot of just little nuanced things with them. Whereas with the Eagles here, it's a little bit more straightforward. Sure, we mix in Saquon Barkley in there. We have a little bit of a Dallas Goedert injury that we'll touch on here in a second, but we know who the top dogs are there. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. It's those 3 players and Saquon Barkley. Got to figure out what to do with Dallas Goedert. Let's go in and get into their team breakdown. And so, yes, I mentioned Dallas Goedert was a little bit banged up. He should be good to go for this game. He's not even showing up on the injury report right now. So, like, we're fine with that. So, I mean, that's really it for the injury report for the Eagles. They're healthy, which is a good thing for them. And so we just go ahead and get into the top prop bets for them. The best one that we are going to see is going to be for Dallas Goedert for under his fantasy score. Now, that's going to be depending on whatever site you want, guys, but this is one where an underdog it's too high considering their scoring. On PrizePicks, it's a little bit too high considering their scoring. And the thing with it is, we saw last year that it was pretty a consistent predictor. It's like if Goddard was out, Devonta Smith would be a good play. If Smith was out, Goddard would be someone we'd want to look at. And I expect that to continue even more so now that the fact that they have Saquon Barkley. And so I'm probably thinking this is the best bet for Goddard. No, sure. Could he score a touchdown? Yes, that's always in the realm of possibilities. Obviously, touchdowns are a little bit fluky. I just don't expect that to happen in week 1. I don't think anyone would truly be expecting that. And so if he does get his over fantasy score, I think that'd be the way he does that. And so if you wanted to bet his under on Underdog or PrizePicks, that'd be the way to go. The slightly better one would be on Underdog. Either way, though, it's going to be a good bet there. And so another bet that we see that's popping up on both sites, I'm showing Underdog right now, but on PrizePicks, we'll jump back into that. On PrizePicks, we got Saquon Barkley for under his rushing receiving yards. Again, PrizePicks and Underdog are a little bit high compared to the average sportsbook line. That's going to naturally happen, just as an FYI, because this isn't a typical prop bet that's available on normal sportsbooks. So we have to combine rush and receiving yards. And so naturally, PrizePicks and Underdog are kind of living in the gray area a little bit, where they'll say our line might be wrong with their rush or receiving yards line separately. And with that, we're going to bump it up slightly. And so that's why you're going to see some differences there. But Saquon Barkley for under his rush receiving yards is a decent one. Now, my slight concern would be the fact that this Packers defense might be better, might be worse. We don't know for sure. It's going to be a former college football coach now heading the defense there for the Green Bay Packers, which should be an upgrade. At the same time, we don't know for sure. Barkley is in this offense for the first time, where in a long time, he's not going to be like the star player. He's going to be like the co-star player with 4 other players. So how much attention is he really going to get? Does that help him? Does that hurt him? There's a lot of variables in here, so I probably wouldn't want to go crazy with this one, but I'm okay with betting his under. We look at the season stats from last year. Basically right there. They're going off of his averages last year. They're not getting too crazy with it. So again, probably do like the under a little bit more on PrizePicks. On Underdog, we don't need to touch this one. So from there, are we getting any other edges here? Jalen Hurts fantasy score, maybe slightly there. I don't mind it. Don't love it. Jake Elliott, they bumped up his kicking points to 7, which is a little bit surprising to me. At 6.5, it was only a 53% likely to hit. That's kind of a common theme, though. They're really attempting to not give us that many edges. I think it's worth calling out Jalen Hurts passing yards prop. Again, off by 3, which isn't a big difference, but can be. That little edges that we gain can add up in the long term. What I want to call it is the difference between Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. So we look at the lines for Devonta Smith that we are getting, and I would say these are all pretty much correct. I think they're good, but we compare them against A.J. Brown, and that's where they get a little bit surprising to me. I really don't think there should be that big of an edge. Now, this gap has closed a little bit more as the week has progressed, but I'm probably just not betting on A.J. Brown, and given the lines that we are now getting on Devonta Smith, I'm probably okay with them. I don't mind him to get 5 receptions, but I don't need to go crazy with that either. And then real quickly, we'll take a peek back into Underdog here. So we look at the Underdog prop bets that we are getting. Nothing too crazy here. More the same, which is nice, I would say. And so with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the bets of the day for this slate. I do want to remind you guys of the promo codes that are currently going on right now. Use the promo code 9to5 to get $5 instantly when you make your first $5 bet on PrizePicks. Do you think it's worth calling out? They still have the Caleb Williams free square available, and they will consistently be dropping promos. And so with that, let's go ahead and get into the PrizePicks bet of the day. And so looking at the PrizePicks bet of the day, going with Jordan Love for over his fantasy score, do want to call it that this is slightly higher on Underdog. The scoring is the same on Underdog as well. So it's off by like 0.75, not a big difference. But if you guys are saying, Eric, you're an idiot, you were right on Jordan Love last year, basically every single week, season long wise, I thank you for that. But this year you are wrong about Jordan Love. That's fine. You can bet his under on Underdog. I'm okay with that. And then looking at Christian Watson, again, this is a better bet, I would say, on FanDuel, where you can bet his over 3.5 receptions at plus 135. That line on Underdog is a clear outlier. I get why PrizePicks had to drop this line down. I'm saying that this is one of the early season outliers that we are gaining an edge on. And I do think, consistently speaking, he will average over 3 receptions, especially in projected good matchups. This last year was one of the best matchups you could ask for. And so assuming we are getting everything correct about him, assuming he's not limited, he will consistently be able to get this over of 3 receptions, at least get a push on it. Saquon Barkley, more just gain an edge on PrizePicks compared to the average sportsbook line, compared to the projection data, and compared to the underdog line. PrizePicks is the clear outlier here. I'm fine with betting that under. And then Dallas Goedert, we know that that's going to be the best bet on paper, and the best bet on paper that I actually agree with as well for PrizePicks. And so we go ahead and jump on into Underdog. Just want to remind you guys of the promo code that's currently going on for them. Get deposit match up to $100. I believe it's more than that. Test it out. I'm saying $100 just to be safe, but use the promo code 9to5 to get access to that promo code. That's just the easy way to help out the channel as well, both of those. And so we jump into the Underdog by the day. I don't necessarily like these ones. Just to be clear, I think the better options are on PrizePicks. But this is my way of saying, all right, I'll agree with the data that Christian Watson will get under. We're going to make the best bet possible. And if we're doing that, we're going to do it on Underdog, where we're getting a slightly better edge. Same thing with Dallas Goedert. Now, I will say there probably should be some correlation then. And they're not adjusting the payout as much as I thought they would with this bet. And so Jordan Love under fantasy score. If Christian Watson's not getting his over, I'm going to assume Jordan Love is not getting his over. And if those two happen, I'm going to assume that's because Josh Jacobs is just having a great, awesome day. Again, Josh Jacobs should be in for a high workload. It wouldn't be surprising to see him score a touchdown. It wouldn't be surprising to see him have a massive game for his first game with the Green Bay Packers. They brought him in to do that. Heck, if this was Aaron Jones, I think people would probably be wanting to bet the over even more so, which is strange. But I think these correlate together, and I'm glad that payout isn't being as adjusted as I thought it would be. Then lastly, guys, just want to remind you guys that the promo code that's currently going on the 9to5 website, hit 20K on YouTube. So this promo code is kind of a thank you to you guys. Use the promo code Keep Cashing to get 20% off your first month of the 9to5 membership. So make that $10 a month membership $8 for the first week. That's going to be all for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too crazy. I know I went into depth, but this is one slate where there's a lot of nuanced stuff. Again, thank you for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing. Make sure to head on over to 9to5sports.com, get access to those tools. All right, thanks for watching. And as always, let's keep cashing.